Welcome insiders to Film Inside. I'm your host Eric. On today's video, we're going to be comparing a few cameras. First, the Canon T3i. This is my main camera that I'm filming with right now. Loving shooting with the DSLR, but I'm also kind of not liking it. I kind of do miss a camcorder. So we're going to be comparing my last camcorder, the Canon XA20 M40, which I just did a review of. Or well, I think I uploaded that video. We'll have to see. Regardless, I'm going to be comparing the Canon T3i to the Canon XA20 M40 compared to a new camcorder which I just got my hands on. This guy, the Canon XA20. This is a beginner's level professional camcorder, and it's cost around $2,000, so it's double the price of both my cameras, the XA and my Canon T3i. So we're going to be comparing how this performs, at least when it comes to video quality and audio quality straight out of the box. So let's hit the intro. So just to let you know, I'm not going to be taking a look at all the cameras, looking at all the features. Like, I'm not going to be going over the fact that this has XLR jacks for external microphones and stuff. We're just going to be taking a look at the video quality you can get out of these cameras and camcorders, and also the audio quality you can get with the built-in microphones. So starting off the comparison, we're on the Canon T3i recording this little flame of fire outside. The background is pretty fuzzy and the flame is in focus. Now jumping over to the XA20, everything's look fairly similar, but the background isn't exactly as fuzzy, I don't think. The color might be a little bit off. I am trying to match the colors of every single shot. I'm kind of shooting some things in manual, shooting some things in automatic. I'm trying to really make every shot look identical. Just try to see if you can get the same actual performance out of each camera. Now let's move over to the XA. Now I'm in the XA and I'm noticing everything looks very similar to the XA20, but the noise level seems to be just a tad bit higher. Now looking at the back of the go-kart in the shed, the Canon T3i is looking pretty good. Looking at the XA20, everything just seems to be a lot more sharper and a bit more clear. And then going to the XA, it looks still kind of sharp and clear, but the noise level seems to be again a bit higher. So now I'm going to try to be a bit more quiet, so let's just take a look at this little piece of bark that I found on the ground. You might notice that the Canon T3i kind of focuses more on the bark and then fuzzes out the background and the front, when the XA and the XA20 do focus on the piece of bark, but it also focuses more of what's in front of it and then fuzzes out the background just a little bit, but not as much. Now looking at the crop factor of each camera, obviously my Canon DSLR can change the crop factor depending upon what lens it's on. Right now I have the 18-55mm, which is decently wide, but then jumping over to the XA20 has an even wider lens, but this lens is built in, so you can't really change it down the road. But then looking at the XA has the most cropped in lens, which you can add filters and lens adapters, but that's really no fun. Now here is the low light test, and just to let you know, I'm kind of liking the image of the XA20 the best. The XA20 seems to have less noise than the T3i and the XA. Also, just a quick note that the XA20 does get to go in a higher exposure than the Canon T3i and also the XA. Not to say it's very usable, because the noise is definitely extremely present, but you still can go even brighter if you really have to. Looking at the capability of the zoom on these cameras, again, the Canon T3i can have different lenses, so the results will vary. But checking out the XA20 has a 20x optical zoom, when the Canon XA M40 only has about a 10x optical zoom. comparing the stabilizers, it's a joke. The Canon T3i is going to do the worst. There's no really stabilization in the Canon T3i, at least compared to the XA20 and the Vixia, which all have great stabilizing systems built inside of them. So this is what I'm going to call the selfie test. I'm using the Canon T3i right now with the built-in microphone. Just going to walk around and see how the stabilizer does. You can hear the quality of the microphone, seeing is it any decent? It's probably not. Now let's switch to the Canon XA20. Okay, selfie test on the Canon XA20. This is a bit harder because this camera is really big. It looks like it's a little bit more wide angle. Not exactly sure how audio quality is doing though. So anyway, now let's switch to the Canon Vixia M40. So here is the selfie test with the Canon Vixia M40. It has the most cropped in lens, so selfies aren't too good on this camera, but I'm not sure how exactly the audio quality is sounding. Never really had a problem with the Canon Vixia M40's audio. It was pretty decent, at least for being a built-in microphone. Regardless, this is the end of the test. So there you go, that is the overall look of all these cameras and how they compare. Now, you could have just watched the video and gotten a good idea of how these cameras are going to perform, but it's a bit more than what you're actually seeing. I did try to match all these cameras to look fairly similar, but I could have had some user error, meaning that I could have made some mistakes here and there, so you can't exactly take this comparison as a true comparison, because I could have made a mistake here and there. But with that said though, still take what I showed you into account, because I don't think I did a terrible job. I'm just saying it might not exactly be perfect. But to tell you how I felt about this comparison, the Canon T3i definitely had the softest shot, when the Vixia and the XA20 had a bit more sharpening to it, which isn't exactly a good thing. The XA20 and the Vixia definitely had really crisp and very clean shots. And also that partially has to do with the autofocusing system, because there is autofocusing in it when the T3i doesn't have autofocusing. But I feel like both the XA20 and the Vixia have digital sharpening built inside of the camera, which in my opinion kind of makes the shots a bit unnatural, which is something I don't really like. When I'm in a shot like this with all this lights and stuff, I feel like the camera's trying to bring out a lot more information of my face that it really shouldn't be. Like the pores on my face, the crease on my head or whatnot. Like, I don't think that really is seen in real life as much as these cameras are portraying it, but the digital sharpening of these cameras is trying to make a lot more imperfections known greater, which isn't exactly a good thing. And I feel like the shot looks a bit unnatural and a bit unpleasing because of that. When, like I said, the Canon T3i has a lot more of a softer shot, and I feel it's a bit more natural, a bit more cinematic, and definitely better when you're shooting like a short film. But even with that said, the Vixia and the XA20 aren't unusable in shots like this. You just have to try to get used to setting up your shots so it doesn't really pull out the bad sharpening in it. Maybe there's ways to fix the sharpening in the XA20 and the Vixia, either through camera settings or editing. I'm not sure, I haven't exactly figured that out yet. But another thing to note is, for some of the shots, you might have noticed that the Vixia doesn't always look as great, especially in the last studio shot I got of it. And that isn't exactly the Vixia's fault, that was more my fault. I have a lot of control over the Canon T3i and the XA20. I can control like the color temperature, I can control exposure very easily, but on the Vixia, I don't have a lot of control over all the settings, so it's a bit harder to match the shots of the XA20 and the Canon T3i. If I spent a bit more time in it and wasn't comparing these specific shots, I could have maybe gotten an even better image, but I didn't because I didn't have all the controls I have with the XA20 and the Canon T3i. And with that said, I feel like the Vixia and the XA20 actually look very similar. I think the XA20 has a little bit less digital sharpening, so I feel like it looks a little bit more natural. But besides that, the Vixia obviously doesn't have as much manual controls as the XA20, but the image quality looks to still be very similar, though the Vixia definitely has a little bit of a worse capability when it comes to low light. The XA20 pulls ahead definitely compared to the T3i and the Vixia. The XA20 is, from what I'm seeing, better in low light than both of these cameras. Also, comparing the Vixia and the XA20 to the Canon T3i, again, besides the sharpening issue, I also have noticed that since the Canon T3i has a bigger sensor, you get a lot more bokeh, or well, fuzziness of backgrounds. So it's definitely a lot easier to achieve bokeh with the Canon T3i. It is possible with the XA20 and the Vixia if you're far away from your subject and you zoom in, but it's not as easy, and if you really want to always get some really nice bokeh in your videos, you might struggle with the Vixia and the XA20. When compared to a T3i, you're going to get more bokeh, but that's just a talk about camcorders versus DSLRs, which I might cover in another video. Regardless, that is the comparison with the T3i, the Vixia, and the XA20. I keep going on and on if you let me, but I probably shouldn't. Anyway, what you should really get out of this review, or well, comparison I should say, not review. The review is coming later above the XA20 and my Canon T3i actually. But what you should get out of this video is the Canon T3i is softer than the XA20 and the Vixia. That is both good and bad. The bad part about it is I feel like there's a lot more digital sharpening in the Vixia and the XA20, which makes it a bit more unnatural, but you can work with that, and we'll be talking about that more in the full review of the XA20. Also, you might want to know that the XA20 has better low light capabilities than the Canon T3i, at least in my opinion. Also, the XA20 is better than the Vixia because it has more manual controls, but again, we'll cover that in the actual review of the XA20. Anyway guys, that's a comparison. What do you guys think about all these cameras and camcorders? If you want to see any more videos on this topic, let me know down below. Maybe I can make some more videos with these cameras, camcorders, etc. Anyway guys, that's a video for today. Please leave all your comments down below. Let's do subscribe and share with your friends. Help the channel any way you can. Also, let me know if you own any of these cameras, because that'd be kind of interesting. Anyway, my battery's about to die on my Canon T3i, so I need to sign out before that happens. Anyway, my name's Eric, this is Tech Inside, and I'll see you in the next video.